Well, testosterone delivers a euphoria and it suppresses anxiety. And anxiety is these girls' biggest problems. So they go on it and they feel great. And they become convinced that they were right about their diagnosis. They can't wait to tell all their friends how bold they feel, how confident they feel. And, you were talking about before, being a teenage girl has always been hard. Well, yeah, but they used to go to their girlfriends to talk about it. But today they don't. They go to the internet.
Well, when someone criticizes like anything transgender, the assumption is that they're, I don't know, a religious bigot or they have some kind of ideology. What got you interested in this? I mean,
what cult are you in?
What cult are you part of?
Well, a reader wrote to me. I had done, primarily opinion journalism, and a reader wrote to me, and she said this. She wrote to me because I'd written an unrelated article for the Wall Street Journal. It was on the gender pronoun laws, and I'm a lawyer, and I had written about the fact that they aren't constitutional in America. The government can't assign criminal and civil penalties for saying something. In fact, government can't make you say anything at all, and it can't punish you based on what you said. Anyway, it's actually a fairly straightforward case in this, argument. And this woman wrote to me and she said, "This is what happened to my daughter. She went off to college. She had a lot of mental health problems. A lot of these girls do. We're seeing a rates of anxiety and depression we've never seen before in this population of teenage girls." And she said, "My daughter started a course of testosterone out of nowhere in college with her friends, and parents across the whole country are dealing with this. And no one will write about it. I've written to all kinds of journalists." And I thought, okay, let me get in touch with an investigative journalist I know. And I kept doing that without success.
I ain't touching that.
Right. All these brave journalists didn't want to write about it. Yeah. And at some point I thought, this is crazy. I guess if no one's going to write about this, why shouldn't I? I'm a journalist. I'm supposed to look into these things. So I wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal. And they let me do it. They were really nice about it. And
was anybody trying to talk you down? Like, okay, sure you want to do this?
At some point my husband is like, "Are you really going to, But, he was very supportive, but it was a little weird. This wasn't a personal issue to me.
Yeah.
Everyone assumes there's a personal issue, but I have to tell you, if you've been through this, if you have had a daughter who has gone on a course of testosterone and altered her bodies and you don't think this is right for her and you can't stop her or you haven't been able to stop her and you couldn't write about this because, certainly in the investigation I did, I don't know that you could do it because it's these parents. There's not a parent who doesn't call me who doesn't end up sobbing. So I couldn't have written it and had such a, sort of curiosity, but a certain level of detachment if it had been a personal issue.
Right.
So anyway, eventually that's what I did. The piece in the Wall Street Journal really blew up. It had over 1,000 commenters. And then there was a piece in the New York Times responding to it. And at the time I was planning on writing a different book. And my agent said to me, because I was going to write this book about young women today. And my agent said, "Well, that seems to be blowing up. You sure don't want to write about that?" So.
It's a good agent. I figured it out. You talk about the testosterone a lot in the book, and that's it. It struck me that it's like this cult, and they have this there's a fixation that develops on like testosterone will solve all my problems.
Well, testosterone delivers a euphoria, and it suppresses anxiety, and anxiety is these girls' biggest problems. So they go on it and they feel great, and they become convinced that they were right about their diagnosis. They can't wait to tell all their friends how bold they feel, how confident they feel. And, you were talking about before, being a teenage girl has always been hard. Well, yeah, but they used to go to their girlfriends to talk about it. But today they don't. They go to the internet. So they're getting advice from, a lot of questionable people. I know there's a young woman named Willow who's a detransitioner. I don't know. I didn't interview her for my book, but she did a series of YouTube. Waffling Willow did a series of YouTube. She was herself a detransitioner. She had transitioned and regretted it. And she did a series of really brilliant, reviews of every chapter of the book. And one of the things she talks about is the fact that when she went on testosterone, she agreed with what I say in the book, that it was true for her, that you do feel like, oh my God, I feel so much better. My anxiety is suppressed. I get this euphoria. I was right. I am trans. But then, over a period of the next year or so, very often that subsides and you're left with the same problems you started with.
Well, that's weird. I never thought that. I'm curious if you could take away my testosterone for a day. and be like, I kind of assume, like, when I hear about the way women think, which do all that we're not allowed to have any of these conversations, right? They can't talk about like women think a certain way. It's not because when I was hearing your interview, I kept going, wait, you can't say that. That like generally girls this, generally boys that. Like that's stuff that's all it's not supposed to talk about it anyway.
Well, think about, you said what would happen if you took away your testosterone, but think about older men, right, who have lower testosterone. One of the first ththings they do is they start to weep, right?
Wait,
I mean,
old men weeping?
They tend to cry more easily. I mean, that's one of
I cry more easily. I'm 40 now. I cry at dumb stuff.
So girls go on this, and all of a sudden, a weepy 7th, 8th grader who was so emotional, who's going through her whole body's changing. The kids at school think she's ugly. She thinks she's ugly.
Yeah.
Social media tells her she's ugly. She's crying all the time. She starts testosterone in 9th grade, 10th grade, whatever it is, and she feels great, and she doesn't have the urge to cry anymore. It's gone because that's what testosterone does. It does a lot of bad stuff
Tear
too.
suppression. Huh. She's giving wedgies and stuff too.
Punching
Toxic
people.
masculinity. Dose.
Let's talk about the social media element, because that was super interesting to me. There was something, it was almost counterintuitive that you mentioned in the book, that like girls are not having their first kiss, as young as they used to. And we think of it like, we're good Christian guys. We're like, that's good, but there's
Until they're
this,
30.
but there's this like, I don't know, reverse effect where now they're finding that they're exploring, their sexuality or whatever online with these strangers that are like feeding them this gender ideology. And so they're not going to the mall and hanging out with their friends and making mistakes and then being like, oh, kind of finding out who they are that way.
It's exactly right. A whole generation of Gen X parents didn't want their kids to be exposed to any harms or any risk, basically. And so they watched them like hawks. And so a young girl of 12, 13, 14 has never had a first kiss very often. We've seen the rates. I didn't do the work on this. Other psychologists have done. So she doesn't know what she is. And she doesn't know, she's getting a lot of her messages at a very young age. A lot of them are coming from social media. A lot of them are coming from school, in which she's taught, it's a really good idea. You're a white girl. If you want to get, a certain amount of, congratulation at school, it's really great to pick from one of these more exotic things. So she can't choose to be a different race, but she can choose to be trans. And very often she starts out and she says, I'm pansexual. She's never kissed a girl. She's never kissed a boy, but she knows she's pansexual all of a sudden. And of course, that's not how sexuality emerges. It's not something Google answers for you. But that is how, young women are developing today. And part of the problem is internet porn, because even though they've never seen, all the romantic movies that got made, they don't have 16 candles to dream about, the way girls my age, my generation did. But what they do have is internet porn that they've seen at age 11 or very, very young ages. It's extremely violent, and it terrifies them. And they think, I don't know what I want, but I don't want that. If that's what sex is, I want something else to dream about.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the whole Me Too movement and the whole toxic masculinity thing. I mean, I think that it makes sense because even I was raised by a single mother, and I always considered myself raised more feminine than the usual guy. I was terrified of guys, which I kind of relate to the terror, the scariness of men that women experience. Because I was picked on a lot, and I never felt like one of the guys. And yeah, so like I relate to I've seen my daughter, I have a teenage daughter, and she's gotten a lot of these ideas. It feels like, okay, I'm transitioning to another topic in the middle of my question.
No, don't transition.
I'm transitioning.
No, Ethan, no.
Because one thing I thought a lot about when I was listening to your interview, we talk about this coddling thing that was bad. Gen X parents were helicopter parenting and stuff like that.
That's you guys.
And then so we say we shouldn't do that, right? But then the other thing that the messaging here is keep your kids off social media, don't give them phones, blah, blah, blah. To me, those are contradictory statements. Like, how do you both not helicopter parent, but then also like completely ban the thing that is going to make you seem like the most strict parent? Like, because that's the hardest thing. And what I noticed, like and I try to be very wise about it, let my daughter go onto social media with, I'm involved. We have passwords. We watch. She has to private account. It was like a month. Like it was instant, the change that she just became a different person.
So I would say this. I think we're uptight about the wrong things. And by the way, I say this with a lot of humility because I didn't know any of this till I did this crazy investigation. So I think that the phones and social media is poison. It is poison. When you see the rates, and Jonathan Haidt did the work on this, Jean Twenge did the work on this, academic psychologists have done this. When you see the rates of cutting, anxiety, depression, suicidality of teenage girls, and I had told you about this in 2007, you would have said, no way is my kid getting one. Are you crazy? What, so she can stay in touch with her friends and be suicidal? Are you mad? Of course I'm not going to do that. And yet here we are. It's sending them to a debutante ball. It never ends.
Yeah.
They're being compared. They are finding out every party in real time that they're not invited to. They are seeing the beautiful images that have been edited of their friends who look 1,000,000 times more beautiful than they think they are. They are seeing how many more likes their friends get. It's cruel, and it lives with them nonstop. It is putting them and forget about the things you don't know about that are being said about them, the jokes that are made about them. I mean, I'm an adult and it's hard. Right? And I can't even imagine what it would have been like for me at 12 or 13. It's so cruel to put these young girls, especially, who are so worried about how they look already and so worried what their friends think on social media. So I would say, let your girls have her overnight. Who cares what movies they're watching within, reasonable, whatever, within a certain level, I'm not saying
RoboCop.
Right. Who cares how much of that they're watching? Who cares what lyrics they're listening to within reason? It's all part of the, who cares what books they're reading within reason. I mean, I don't know every book that's out there, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's a classic,
Reason.
let them read it, right. I mean, but the social media, would you take your daughter to a mixer with 30-year-old men? Because that's who's waiting for her online. And you wouldn't do that. But when I interviewed detransitioners, I interviewed this young woman, Benji, a remarkable young woman who transitioned and regretted it. And she told me one of the first, she was lonely. She was 13, parents, really tough house she was growing up in. And she went through a really hard time. And first thing she did was she went online and she decided maybe I'm trans. And she went on social media, started that identity. And all of a sudden, a ton of adults couldn't wait to congratulate her and celebrate her. And she felt loved. And then they started asking for pictures because they're adults talking to children. So, I would say, you got to let your kids go to the corner store. You got to let them just be. You got to let them have stupid friends who are going to suggest dumb things and whatever. But social media, wow, I don't know. That's where I draw a line.
Hey everybody, Kyle here from the Babylon Bee. I hope you really enjoyed that video. If you did, head on over to our YouTube channel because there's a lot more where that came from. We do animation, funny sketches. We have a weekly podcast. We interview a lot of crazy and fun people. So go check it out, hit subscribe, like, share, comment, interact with us on social because we feed on your love. And we might even reply and interact with you back. So check it out. Thanks a lot for watching.